Morristown Green.com.
So when you get to the Midlands, is this the first time now you're going to be flying in the plane? In
in a B-17.
What kind of a B-17?
Yeah, Boeing B-17.
And how many crew did that hold?
Good question. We trained as 10 down in Tampa, and just as we were leaving, they said, we're going to take one of the gunners off each crew because so many German fighters have been shot down now that we only need one who's a gunner only. All the rest of us, except the pilots, had machine guns. That's why the B-17 was called the Flying Fortress.
Oh, is that what it was?
Yeah. And that's what really saved us. I mean, we had so much firepower that the German fighters, a lot of which had been shot down by that time, that if they started to come through us, they were brave guys. No, of course we had them outnumbered. Actually, we were only subject to German fighter attacks out of 35 combat missions about 4 times maybe. It was so surprising when they actually did. They came through. They'd line up. They learned their tactic. We're flying like this, and 36 of us together. It looked like
Mr. Harty is putting his hands out straight in front of him.
And it's like a beehive. For the German fighter pilots, we looked like a terrible beehive because as soon as they attacked us, all these blazing machine gun barrels would open up on them, and we'd get...
How many flying fortresses would be flying together?
36. Yeah, 3 flights of 12. And 10 guns, 10 heavy machine guns. So that's 360 heavy machine guns. And that's why we Americans succeeded, because the British before us had improvised. Nobody knew this was coming, and they flew bombers with fewer machine guns and smaller size, 30 caliber bullets. We had 50 calibers, and the German fighters were able to decimate them, but they couldn't. We basically repelled them.
And so, even though you were in charge of the bomb, you had to have a machine gun too?
Yeah, I had 2 of them in the top turret. I swung 360 degrees in the top turret. We had 12 or 13 of these heavy machine guns, and 2 of them were mine in this automated, for those days, top turret.
So you could see out of it?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I had to.
And they could see you?
Yeah, they could see a lot of other machine guns too. Those fighters, they were brave men. But most of our damage came from the anti-aircraft artillery down on the ground. That was what caused most of our casualties. Artillery shells bursting around us.
Because you had to go low enough to...
Yeah, pick it over the target. All the military targets of manufacturing or oil facilities or bridges or railroad yards. There weren't any Autobahn highways then in Germany. They were built after the war. They were our primary targets. It was the concept of strategic bombing, which was invented by the after World War I. The American and the British and the French armies in the 1920s, the generals got together and said, well, there's got to be a better way if we ever have to fight a land war in Europe again. Because remember we're never near the line, but the trench warfare where they were just bogged down, terrible winters in those trenches, and the guys were starving and cold. That was my father's job. Was in World War I. He carried ammunition from maybe half a mile back up to the troops and hand them for the artillery and whatnot. But he was running across open ground. He was never wounded, fortunately, or obviously, but that was scary. But anyhow, the generals in the 20s said there's got to be a better way. So we're going to try a new strategy, and that's bombardment of the German factories and rail lines, so that the German army, if comes to this, will not be able to fight. They won't have any guns or ammunition. They'll run out. So then they won't be able to fight anymore. And that was the idea, was that we were assigned to destroy the German armaments industry and all the means to get
transportation
to the soldiers.
So when you started, when you left England for the flight, you were given specific instructions and maps, no doubt, or charts, or whatever it was called, or the pilot was anyway, to know exactly,
navigators,
as exactly as you could, where you were to go.
Yeah, and we were in formations of 36 bombers, 3 flights of 12 from our base. And there were maybe 30, 35 bases such as ours scattered in the Midlands of England, mostly an hour and a half north of London and over toward the east coast, the North Sea coast.
Oh, right. Oh, right. So you'd be close.
Well, as close as we could be to Germany.
Mm-hmm. And then after a flight, did you get some time off before you did it again? Did you get a rest?
Depended a lot on the weather.
Oh.
Because England in the wintertime, I was there from late September of 1944 to April 1945. I think I saw the sun 3 times.
Oh.
And so that greatly affected the ability to fly missions. We couldn't take off in cloudy weather. We didn't have any really good radar.
Oh.
We had to fly on clear days. Otherwise.
And so was there any socializing with any of the local girls?
Very little. Yeah. We were out on what had been farmland, and there was a little village of Deanthorpe, which doesn't sound like an English word, and it's not. I asked why, and they said, well, 500 years ago the Danes came over from Denmark and tried to conquer England, and this is as far as they got. And this village is named Deanthorpe. This is a charming little village. But the farmers, they didn't want their daughters messing around with us.
Right.
And
so you never got down to London on a leave or a pass?
No, I did. Yeah, every maybe 3 weeks, I could get a 72-hour pass, and we go down to London on about an hour and a half to one of the...
On a train?
Yeah, on the train, yeah. And the USO, United Service Organizations, they would have a desk there in the railroad terminal. And they would assign me a hotel room, crummy old hotels. It's very small. And so I would go there. I say I because you couldn't fraternize with the officers. That was not. They were all captains and lieutenants, and we were all sergeants. And we lived in the same squadron area on the base, but we never. There was a strict rule in the Army: you don't socialize between officers.
Was that resented?
Yeah, I resented it.
Yeah,
yeah, couldn't do anything about it. And I had 4 enlisted men buddies, and I was the senior guy, and we got along fine. The only time we really saw the 4 officers were when we went into the briefing room, and then flew a mission, and then went into debriefing when we got home. They wanted to know what happened, and then we'd go our separate ways, and it might be a week before we saw them again. But they were all good guys.
Mm-hmm. Right.
But they were not.
That was
we
the
were
system,
not allowed
right?
to socialize together.
So was London being bombed by those
The Nazis,
unmanned?
Yeah.
What were they called?
Oh,
The
E-bombs. What was it?
but the unmanned.
Yeah, unmanned missiles. Yes.
Well, as late as
When I was there in late '44, probably the last ones that came over, and
so London looked pretty
it
bad.
was beat up, and fortunately, English people, the subways are very deep over there,
Right.
so that was very safe to go down there. You climbed down 3 flights of stairs and back up again, but you were safe down there. But I used to see the people on the underground. I felt sorry for them, the civilians, and old people, and little kids, who had to spend the night down there. It was cold. I mean, their homes had been bombed, or they were in danger of being bombed if they didn't go down into the underground there. That's the way to get around. I don't remember riding on a bus. I just remember riding on the underground. Probably didn't have any gas to run buses. But I was a real tourist. I thought, this is, I may never get back here. I got to see this place. So I did. And I say I because my my crewmates, for the first time we were on leave, we went up the other way toward Scotland and went to the town of, I keep forgetting, but they make wonderful silverware there.
Oh.
You probably think they would, or an icon. And it was an industrial town.
Sheffield?
Yes, that's it. Very good. Well, all these guys wanted to do was party and find girls. And I said, that's not for me. I want to be a tourist. So I went once with them, and then the next time we had to leave, I said, I decided I'm going down to London to find out what's there. Anybody want to go with me? And they said, no, we're going back up there to Sheffield. So I was all 2 or 3 nights by myself in London. But the USO was very good. They would, as soon as I got off the train, there was a desk there, and they would assign me to a hotel, a little old hotel. And I go there and stay by myself. And just traveled around London on my own. Went to Buckingham Palace and Windsor Castle and all this.
Oh. On the train again, right?
Yeah.
You were smart to do that.
Yeah.
To take that opportunity.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to do that. I thought this was an opportunity. I've been back since with my wife.
But you weren't married now.
No.
Right. Had you met your wife?
No.
No.
I met her on graduation weekend from college.
Oh, I thought maybe you met her at Wittenberg when you were...
No, there were some nice looking girls. Didn't get to stay long enough.
So you were very fortunate when you were doing all these, how many runs over, or how many?
35.
And then after 35, you didn't have to do any, or
that was the tour.
That was.
Yeah, that was the schedule. They said you're going over there and fly 35 missions, and you can come home.
So a month before VE Day, you were through in April?
Yeah, 10 weeks or something, yeah.
Were you hearing the kind of news that made you think the war in Europe was coming to an end?
Yes.
Right.
Well, we could see from the opposition there weren't as many German fighters, but there was more intense anti-aircraft fire, because as the Germans pulled back from Poland and France, the infantry, they took their artillery with them, and they stuck them up over their most important targets. And so versus guys who were flying missions the year before me, we were not in danger so much in their fighters, but we were from their anti-aircraft fire was much more intense.
And did sometimes people in your crews, did you ever hear people refusing to go because they had just gone to so many and were just too frightened to get back on the plane?
That happened. I didn't know anybody like that. It was my crew did not. But and I didn't know those guys, except we were told when we went into the mess hall and cafeteria, and we had been told that those guys who are serving your meals, they have our predecessors years from flight crews, and have refused to fly, and they've been broken to private, and they're here for the duration of the war.
Doing KP.
KP, exactly, you got it right.
Well, that's better than jail.
Yes, yeah.
Although shameful, I guess.
Shameful, yeah. You know, they were good-looking guys. They looked like us, the rest of us, but they just, well, you can say they were cowards. They said after one or two missions, were scared to death. And the Army said, well, somebody's got to do this.
Every time somebody doesn't go, somebody else has to, right?
Yeah, the song used to be, "You're in the Army, Mr. Brown."
So how was the food in the cafeteria?
Oh, it was good.
So what were we talking about? We were talking
about the food. I just asked you about
the guys that refused to fly and
doing KP.
Right. Pull it.
The food was, yeah, you're right. We had the best mess sergeant in the Air Force.
A hero.
We elected him. and he was just an addict, and he could scrounge up food that other bases didn't have somehow. And
was the food coming from the U.S.?
Yeah, the British didn't have anything. All came from the U.S. And this one anecdote on this mess sergeant, he said he wanted to fly. He wanted to see what his customers were doing. Oh. And while I was there, we said, well, you're really too old, and you haven't been to gunnery school or anything. But then, okay, there are not going to be many German fighters. So they, not on my crew, but on another crew, he flew a mission while I was there. They said when we got back, he said, okay, I don't need any more. Now I understand what you guys are doing.
Yeah.
But he was that kind of guy. I mean, he was rah, doing his job and take care of the rest of us. And he did.
So, was there any drinking? Was there a bar?
On base, no. No, there was no alcohol.
We had these bombs that were carried in our bomb bay on the B-17. There were 100-pounders, 50-pounders, the weight of the bomb, 100 pounds and 200 pounds, depending on the target. If it was a railroad yard or an open factory or something, we'd just take 100-pound bombs. If it was a big factory or a tunnel entrance or something, we were trying to disrupt the Germans' ability to manufacture and move weapons and ammunition to their army, as I said before. So there's the one you're handing me that's mission number 4 out of 35, and that's all these targets are in Germany, and that's an oil refinery at Misburg, and we hit that on November 29th, 1944, and the bomb load was 500 pounds. That's the big boys. General GPs means general purpose, as opposed to an incendiary bomb where we were trying to deliberately set a fire. These were just regular high explosive general purpose bombs, GPs.
Mr. Hickey is reading this from a tag that he saved,
Harty.
a small 2-inch, Mr. Harty
Yeah.
is reading this from a tag that he saved. It's about 2 inches long and 1 inch wide.
And this is
He has
a
put this
cotter pin.
information on himself and saved it. And it's hooked onto a cotter.
Cotter pin, very ordinary things that you would hook together around the house. And
It was
that
where?
that was in the nose of the bomb. And as long as that was in the nose, the bomb could not explode, even if you dropped it. But and its bomb tag stayed in the bombs until we got over Germany for safety reasons. And as we were approaching the target, within a half hour from the target, it was my job to go back into the bomb bay.
Which is below?
No, it's it's all a level fuselage, and my space station was just forward of the bomb bay, in the cockpit with the 2 pilots, and then my battle station was there was a turret, heavy machine guns turret above the fuselage, between the cockpit and the bomb bay.
So you would leave that and come to the bomb bay.
I put on the oxygen, we were all on oxygen systems then. We didn't have central oxygen. And I disconnect from the ship's oxygen system and put on a tank of oxygen, which gave me about 30 minutes of oxygen, which connected to my mask on my face. And then I go back into the bomb bay, open the door, and get out on this very narrow catwalk, which was about 9 inches wide. And there was the bottom part of the fuselage of the B-17 was a part of the structure. And the bombs are on the left and the right of this walkway, and they're up on racks like this. And the bombs are this side of the rack and that side of the rack. And
To the left and right.
Left and right.
And they are upright?
They're
lying?
in slings. They're electronically attached to the walls of the interior walls of the fuselage, or to these columns that are in the middle of the fuselage. And I was in between them on this counter.
And they have been put in there by the ground crews.
That's correct.
Earlier.
Yes, but these bomb pins are in the nose of the bombs, and as long as they're in the nose of the bombs, even if you dropped them, they wouldn't explode. So it was my job, as we were approaching the target, to go back there and pull these cotter pins out of the noses of the bombs.
Carefully.
and then they're armed and they're ready to explode, and if they hit anything. And then I took these bomb tags and I just threw them back into the cockpit. I just, I don't need these anymore. And it later occurred to me that, well, why don't I make a little history here? So I did this. And I encouraged the other guys, when we got back on the ground, I said, if you want a souvenir, I said, there are 30 or 20 of them there in the cockpit. Just go help yourselves. And did you read this? It's pin not to be removed. This thing, this cotter pin, until fuse is about to be placed in the bomb. If the fuse is removed from bomb, replace the pin at once. So when I pulled this out of the nose of the bomb, as I said, then it was ready to explode.
Oof.
So then we opened the bomb bay doors and dropped the bombs, and when we got back on the ground, I took one of these bomb tags for a souvenir. And
Smart.
some of the other guys did, and some didn't. So that's the story of the bomb tags, 35 of them. Excuse me.
Oh. And when you came back to Philadelphia, did you meet with any of your old high school friends who had also been in the service?
Probably a couple of them, but it had been 4 long years.
Yeah, right.
And I was really out of touch with them. I'd say basically no. No, I can't remember any.
So what did you do then?
Well, I found when I was in Atlantic City, that R&R Center, they said Congress has just passed this wonderful law, and you're eligible for it. You're going to get 4 years of free college board and tuition. And I was gasped. I said, I hadn't even thought about that.
Yeah.
So I said, I'm going for that. And I got, and they said, any college you want to get in, they'll take you. You got a free ride for 4 years. And I hadn't even thought about it. And I said to my father and mother, I said, what should I do?
Mm-hmm.
They said, well, you certainly should do that. And I said, I don't even know where the colleges are. They said, you don't? Give me an idea. My father said, did you ever hear of Princeton? And I said, well, yeah, it's some place called the Ivy League. And he said, I said, where is it? He says, it's about an hour from here. And he said, if you're interested, I'll drive you up there. So we just innocently went up one morning and walked into the admissions office. I walked out 45 minutes later, admitted, without even an appointment.
No exam?
No. Well, while I was in Atlantic City, I took the college boards,
Oh, right.
and I did well. They said, in fact, they had just started, but they said, this is, you got the highest score that we've ever recorded. And I said, well, how long have you been doing this? They said, about 2 months. But here it is in writing. So I took that to the Princeton admissions office. And as I said, 45 minutes or an hour later, I walked out, admitted. And the campus was vacant. I mean, there were, the Princeton didn't start admitting women until about 20 years later. And there were some Navy V-12 units. They were officer training units. And there were about 100 of those guys. And another 100 of, I think that's probably clear, Yes, it is. Another 100 guys who were what we call 4Fs,
Right.
who were physically disqualified from military service, and it was hard to find somebody else on campus, and so I was very fortunate. I thank my father for bringing me up there and giving me the idea.
Yeah.
And they were
What
still
a difference.
they were still on the 3 terms during the war. The colleges, as you may know, they converted to 3 terms
No, I didn't.
instead of 2. So there were no summers off. They were accelerated.
Oh,
And there were some Navy V-12 programs there. But other than that, the campus was there were maybe 10% of a normal student body. Because there were no women then. So they welcomed me with open arms. Once in a lifetime opportunity to get into an Ivy League college. So I was blessed lots of ways. Still am.